Hi guys, welcome to the fur tutorial. So the supplies that we are going to need for this tutorial are our full set of Faber-Castell pencils. I know this is just a 24 set, but you need the full set. And the full set of the Prismacolor Premier pencils. We also need the worksheet, so all you need is to print your worksheet out on an A4 piece of paper. In black and white will be fine, and then look at your reference with color from your phone or your iPad, or if you want to print it out in color, you can do that as well. So you don't need a color printer to be able to do this. Then you need an etching tool, so it can be anything that's got a sharp point. So I have a sculpting tool over here and a needle file over here. Either one of these will be fine. Both of them are pretty cheap to get, so you can get the needle files at an auto shop, and they usually come in a set with a whole bunch of different sorts of points and sides. And then the sculpting tools usually come in a set with all different sorts of ends as well, and then they cost a little bit more than the needle files, so see whatever's easily available and which is cheaper, and then you just need one of these and you are going to use it a lot, especially if you're going to be doing my tutorials. The paper I'm going to be using in this tutorial is the Fabriano Academia paper, and it is the 56 pound 120 GSM paper. And the reason I'm using this one instead of my usual Arches watercolor paper is because this paper is very white. The Arches watercolor paper isn't as white as this, and I'd like this one to be as white as possible. That's really the only reason. If the Arches watercolor paper was as white, then I'd be using that instead, because it's got a tiny bit more of a tooth to the paper and it allows you to blend or layer more, whereas this paper might just limit you a bit for that. But we shouldn't be layering way too much, hopefully, and hopefully the tooth will last with this tutorial. Okay. Okay, so I have just pretty much just used masking tape on the two of the edges over here to stick the worksheet onto my drawing paper, and there's nothing on the back of this paper. So here's my drawing paper, here is the worksheet, and we're going to start off this tutorial by doing the straight white fur, so this area over here. So this is really simple. So all you got to do is take your etching tool, and you are going to go along the sort of the flow. You don't have to get every hair right, but you want to go in the right direction and etch this texture into your drawing paper. So you're going to press quite firmly and press this texture in. Okay, Okay, so I'm taking my sharp etching tool. So this is the one that I'm going to use, and I just want to go in the direction of that fur. So right now all we're thinking about is the texture. We don't want to worry about the colors or anything. We are just using this to get the texture into the paper. So pay attention to the direction. Not all hairs are going to be in the exact same direction, so you want to get those ones that are sort of going in their own way. You probably won't be able to see that, but if I can barely see it myself. But at an angle I can see that there is texture in my paper. So you may want to have a good look at that to make sure that you are getting the texture down. And if you aren't, then you need to press even firmer. are a few hairs going in their own direction. So get them in. So I'm going to do this for the entire area. It's going to be easier for me to sort of have my head right next to it, and my head will get in the way of the camera. So if you want to see more, you probably want to have your head really close by, and then you will be able to see some of those areas a little easier. And then continue on that way. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do for the rest of this. Okay, so I have now gone and textured this as much as I can, so much so that it almost looks like my paper is going to tear through the back. That's okay, printing paper is quite thin anyways. So the texture is now on here, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but this is really going to help us get this to look very realistic really quickly, and it's just going to look so easy. So all I've done is I've just taken my Prismacolor Ginger Root PC1084 and lightly created a border. I don't want it to be too dark. And I sort of want to steer away from graphite, especially when you're doing white fur, because it's so difficult when you're using graphite for your outlines to get that graphite off, and to it'll make it look dirty quite easy, so we want to avoid that. So now I'm going to remove this sheet of paper, and I'm going to use my iPad as a reference, and then I am going to start adding color to the fur. The best part is we don't have to worry at all about any texture, so that is really great. We can just fill in the color and observe the reference, and that is as simple as that. So I'll put the reference photo up on the screen. The color that I'm going to start off with so the color I'm going to start off with is going to be a warm grey color. So I'm going to use my Faber-Castell Polychromos Warm Grey number 2, Warm Grey 2, number 271. And I just want to use it as a base layer all over so that I can actually identify where the fur is. So this is just going to make it stand out a bit better and make it pop out, and I can see where I need to add more shadows or add more colors, because just looking at white paper that's got a texture and your eyes are like all fuzzy because you can't see is a bit annoying. So that is a bit of a tedious part of doing something like this when you do the etching first, because you can't actually see what you're doing. So just create a light layer all over your block. How amazing is that? That is so cool. I already love the texture. And yes, it's white fur, but there's hardly any white on here at all. So it's okay to use color. So you need to not be afraid of using color when you're doing white fur. Okay, now it's so much easier to identify where the fur is, and now we can start working on our shadows. So there are a few darker tinges of color. So I pretty much have a range of warm grays that I'm going to be using from the from both sets. So the warm grays, I'm using a beige mastic and a French grey from Prismacolor, and the rest are going to be polychromos. Anyways, let's go on to our warm grey for number 273, and we want to identify some areas that have a little more shadow. So the bottom right of the block is a fair bit darker. So we are just going to add areas of shadow. So without even thinking about the texture, you just want to look at areas that are darker and fill them in. It doesn't have to be in the exact right spot. That's the beauty about doing fur, is if you're going to do a commission of a furry dog or animal, no one's going to worry about the exact area of shadow in the fur. They're going to be amazed at the texture itself and how much it looks like fur in the first place. They're not going to actually go and look at those details. You as an artist will look at details way more than someone that is not an artist. I hope this tutorial also kind of shows you guys how little white there is in white fur. Because it's so hard for our brains to sort of comprehend the concept that, you know, you're drawing white fur but it doesn't look white, and then you're afraid to make it look dirty if you add any sort of color. And you just have to have a close look and realize that there's actually a lot of color going on everywhere. You just need to steer clear of picking colors that are too dark, and that'll make it a little bit easier. So like I said, this is mostly my warm grey tones in both my pencil sets. So we can see the direction is sort of changing over here. So it's going, the direction of the fur is going down this way, but it's going up this way. Okay, now we want to add some warmer tinges. So I'm going to use my Prismacolor Putty Beige PC1083, and this sort of has like a pinkish tone to it, so I want to add that in most of the area, not all of it, but in most of it, just to give it more of that warmth in color. So we know the lightest part is the top right, and then the darkest area seems to be the bottom left, or this corner. So if you had to put a line down here and create two triangles, this part would be lighter than this part. See, that's just added some warmth to the whole thing. Okay, now I want to put in my darkest colors. So I'm using my Warm Grey 4274, and then I'm just going to look closely at my reference. It's almost like there's some areas between the fur that are darker. So that's what we want to put in. Okay, and then you want to create, just lightly with your pencil, go like this over some of the dark areas, particularly the bottom. That's sort of going to create that gradient. Okay, now I want to use my warm grey one, number 270, my polychromos, and I want to create a gradient from this side. So this is sort of my base light color, and I want to bring it in from the top right. See, I'm using the side of my pencil because I don't want to go into the indents of the texture we created. Okay, now I still want to add a little bit of color, so I'm going to use my ivory, number 103 polychromos, just to add a little bit of yellow, just to give it more of a warmer tinge because it's just too grey and cool. Sort of create that as well, all over the place, just to give it more of that warmth. Okay, now I want to use my 30% French Grey PC1070, and I'm going to go in the direction of the fur. Okay, now I want to blend this. Now you can choose to blend it or you can choose to just use pencils, it's up to you. But when you blend, you have to be very, very careful not to get the color into the indents of your paper. So your brush has to just about be dry. There can't be much on there at all. You want that color to come out, but you do not want to go into the texture of the paper. So this is a very time-consuming process because there's so little on your brush. No, I think I'm going to try something different and really, really hope for the best. So I'm just going to rub with the tissue. I haven't put anything on there. I just sort of want to experiment and see. It's going to soften the harshness of the darker colors. And it's going to form that gradient. So I'm just rubbing quite firmly actually. I'm pressing quite hard. I'm just rubbing into... yes. That works pretty wonderfully as well. Okay. Now I want to use my warm grey number 2, number 271 polychromos, and start incorporating full shapes. My dog's moving about. Okay, now I still haven't gone dark enough. But that's okay, it's nice to realize that you need to go darker and not that you need to go lighter. So I want to use warm grey number 273, number 273, and add darker values. And I sort of want to show the shapes and the direction of the fur. And now we're starting to get the colors right. Okay, I want to add more of that nice warm color, so Putty Beige, PC1083. And add some more. Okay, then I'm using my warm grey 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's 4. 274. and adding the darker areas. So those values that are really dark. Could probably go as far as using my espresso pencil actually. I'll do this color first and then I'll come in with espresso. Okay, where be my espresso color? Okay, using espresso PC1099, I'm going to add the nice brown sort of tinges in the dark area here. Be very careful because this is easy to overdo. So you don't want to do on white fur. Okay, now I want to come back in with my tissue. So just fold it up, nothing on it. And I want to rub some of these colors in. That looks so cool. I don't feel like I'm quite done yet, so I'm going to come back in with warm grey 273. I want to add more to this area here. Just so that those darker spots don't sort of just look random, like there is a sort of flow there. Okay, and then using, come back in with my putty beige, add more of that pinkish sort of value. And I think I am very, very happy with that. So now you can come in with an eraser and sort of fix your edges. Make sure your eraser is clean. And then use a brush and there we have the white fur. So I hope you guys can see that it's not white. It's not, white fur is not white. There's a lot of colors in there, and it may come across as being dirty or a little bit grayish, but that is okay. It's gonna add to the realism, because in real life it is not white. And if you compare this to your reference or have a look at it, if you just have to take a black and white photo of it and then have a black and white photo of your white fur reference, then you will see how much value there really is. Actually, I'll do that and I'll put it up on the screen and I'll show you the difference between my drawing in black and white and the reference in black and white. And the reference in black and white, it will probably be darker than mine. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, because we never end up going as dark as what we should with white fur because we're sort of afraid to. So subconsciously we just end up doing it lighter than what it really is like. But if you're confident enough, then go and add some more of those darker values in there. But I'm quite happy with that. That looks like white fur. It looks soft. It looks real. There's texture. And I really didn't have to worry about the texture at all because of the method that we used in etching. All I had to think about was getting my colors right. Okay, so that is part 1 of the 6-part tutorial on how to draw fur. Next up is how to draw curly grey fur.